I call the meeting to order.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In the roll call, we have four board members as usual. And we have a board member that's going to take over in July. It's here, Naomi Andrew. Anybody care about the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Please, for the public's note that item number 5 was removed from the agenda, the restroom concession facility.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Cam, report from the executive session.
On May 14th, 2015, at 6:24 p.m., the board met in closed session. Present were General Manager Lee Moore, Commissioners Dave McNeil, Hugh Kalani, Larry Soa, and Ken Humberston. A guest was Bob George, the Chief Engineer. The primary subject of discussion was pending potential litigation regarding the Carver Bridge pipe and the General Manager's performance and General Manager's objectives for the fiscal year 15-16. That concludes my report. The meeting closed at 7:55 p.m.
We now have a point listed on the agenda for public comment. No one here marked they wanted to speak, except Warren.
No, I didn't mark.
Okay.
All right, thanks for asking me.
We'll now have a budget hearing. Can you open the budget meeting? Budget hearing.
Oh, do you need a motion for that? Yeah. So moved, Mr. Chairman. I move to open the budget hearing.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carol.
Good evening. We're here tonight to talk about the approved biennial budget for years 2015 through 2017. I'll start off just with a brief summary of the Oregon local budget law and how we comply with that. I was appointed budget officer at the January 8th board meeting. Additional budget committee members to fill vacancies were appointed at the February meeting. We did advertise for the budget committee meetings on April 15th, which is in compliance with the law. We were able to deliver budget documents to the committee members and have a document here in-house that was available for public inspection, as well as posting it on the website on April 17th. We held 2 budget committee meetings, April 23rd and May 7th. The budget was approved by the budget committee on May 7th as proposed, and the budget committee also voted for no tax levy. And we advertised for this budget hearing in the newspaper on May 22nd, also in compliance with budget law. So a summary of the budget as proposed. Again, this is our first year that we're doing a biennial budget, so these numbers may seem rather large. These are all in thousands, so that's $24,610,000 in the general fund budget. But that does include the beginning and ending fund balances, and we do have a policy, a board adopted policy that the ending fund balance would be at least 90 days of operating costs. So those numbers are included in that number. So the grand total of our budget for the biennium for 2 years is about $40,000 or $40 million, and we will be and when you do a biennial budget, it's not necessarily a 50-50 kind of prospect. There could be things included in year 1 that aren't in year 2 or the other way around, but you can kind of assume that's about a $20 million budget for each year. If you look just to the revenue and expenditures, you can see in the general fund, we are projecting water sales of $18 million in the next 2 years, and with total revenue of just over $19 million. And with our personnel services, materials services, and capital outlay, we have total expenditures of just under $17 million. So that's all that I have for the presentation, unless anybody has specific questions about items in the budget or anything else that I can
Any
help with.
questions or comments?
I'm good.
I'm good.
We also have a public hearing and one wishing to testify on the budget. Seeing none, yeah?
Move to close the hearing, sir.
Second.
Motion made and second to close the budget hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Action item number 1. Ken?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board adopt resolution number 17-2015, adopting the budget and making appropriations for the 2015 through 2017 biennium.
Second.
Any question or comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberston?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Action item number 2. Ken?
Mr. Chairman, I move the board approve resolution number 18-2015, authorizing an appropriation transfer from materials and services to personnel services in the general fund for fiscal year 2014-15.
Second.
Any question or comment? This is a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberston?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Action item number 3. Ken?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt resolution number 19-2015, bad debt write-off for fiscal year 2014-15, uncollected water bills.
Second.
Any question or comment?
Um,
Roll call.
For the public's benefit, I would just like to ask, how would this compare to last year?
The total write-off for this year is less than last year, and as a percentage of total sales, we've gone down a little bit. We are at 0.08% of our total water sales that we're writing off this year. Last year it was 0.09, so we are going down a little bit. So, you know, people have been drinking the water, people have been paying for the water, so, you know, it's all good. 2 of the accounts were bankruptcy accounts that we can't really pursue any specific collection. We can sign up to receive any payout if there is some down the line. And the rest of them, combination of commercial and residential accounts, have all been sent to collections, but we haven't collected anything on them. If we do get any collections between now and June 30th, then the write-off will actually be a smaller amount than the $7,096. And in fact, I believe we had one come in today or yesterday that was on this list. So the actual write-off that will be in the financials will be a slightly smaller number.
Thank you.
Any more comments? This is a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humberston?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Resolution, action item number 4. Ken?
Give me a moment, Mr. Chairman.
If I could interrupt.
We don't have a draft motion
Right.
on this one.
So we actually, in doing the analysis, realized that we didn't have anything that we needed to write off, so there's no motion needed. We have no action on this item. This is for the items that are miscellaneous accounts receivable. We bill for hydrant permits and any damage that somebody does to the district. And we had a couple that were lagging behind that were potential, but we contacted those individuals and companies, and we've gotten payments on a couple of them. So we have chosen not to write anything off this year.
So That one's dead and buried. Thank you.
No question or comment. Consent agenda.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Roll call vote. All those in favor say aye, those opposed say no.
Commissioner Humbertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kalani?
Aye.
Commissioner McNeil?
Aye.
Commissioner Soa?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Informational reports. Adam, I guess was first.
You agree,
But I want faster
I'll let
than
you
I
take the hot
can
seat.
Okay, Bruce.
Well, good evening, Commissioners. I just wanted to do it's been a while since we've done a true update on the CIP projects, and I wanted to share some facts with you tonight. So, as was shown in the agenda write-up, these are kind of the main projects that we're involved in right now. I think they're all pretty familiar to you, one way or another, maybe some more than others. Carver Bridge Transmission Main Phase 2, that's the one, as we know, is we're working with the county right now, and we'll probably be meeting with the county and the contractor in the relatively near future to kind of present our findings and see what the next steps might be on that project. So the Bell Avenue project, I've got some slides on a few of these. I didn't get pictures on a lot of them, or several of them, mainly because they either weren't in active construction or just going to do a couple of the highlight projects. Bell Avenue, I'll share some more on briefly here in a moment. The Sunrise JTA, as you know, is an ongoing several-year project. We just did some significant work out there, or rather the ODOT's contractor did, and I've got some information to share on that one here briefly. Tolbert Street, waterline relocation, as you know, that's another county project where they're rebuilding the overpass across the train tracks here to the north. And we've got some water lines to move around there. Just a brief update on that. We did advertise that for bid this week. So we kind of, again, on a tight schedule at that, trying to accommodate the county's schedule and all the fun that entails. So, but that's gone well. Got our design completed, got the bid package out this week, and we expect the bid opening on that to be in time for a recommendation for award at the next board meeting. So we should be seeing that in July. The 70th Avenue water line, that's another county-related project that we had to relocate, just about a 200-foot stretch of 6-inch water line. That work is completed. That was one where we actually were able to use one of the contractors that as part of the joinder agreement we did with Sunrise, and used one of their emergency services contractors for a small, we were able to utilize them in this small project, the 70th Avenue job. And then the Monterey project, that's another county related job where the county's going to be extending the Monterey roadway west of 82nd Avenue all the way over to Fuller. And we'll be putting a 12-inch water line in that new road. And then I just briefly mentioned the Carver Bridge, phases 3 and 4. That's really the backbone projects. And as you know, we're doing some preliminary surveying this fiscal year, and it'll stretch into the next fiscal as well for the Patton Road and then the Butterfield transmission main up to the reservoirs. So without further ado, I did want to, I said in the write-up I was going to share some pictures. So I did throw a few of those in here. This, the Bell job, again, that's been going on now for about a month and a half or so.
How long?
About a month and a half. The contractor's been out there, been busy there. Just today, we're able to fill the second phase of water line and probably do a pressure test either tomorrow or Monday. And they're making pretty good progress. After this last phase, there's one more short stretch of water line, and we'll be wrapping it up. So we expect that to complete here in the next month and a half, probably.
Oh, those poor people. We drove down through that project this week on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
Oh, yeah.
Those people cannot be happy.
It's actually, we haven't, we haven't got too many complaints.
That's good to hear.
It's been good, you know, with school buses and metro and lots of traffic through their neighborhoods. We did make a point of getting the word out early. We sent letters out to the community back in February and March, and even put out some reader boards, you know, a few weeks before construction, and that seemed to help quite a bit. So, it's just a shot of the tap of the 12-inch main, the line that's running parallel to the bottom of the screen there, that we tapped into at King Road. And if we're looking straight into the picture, that's heading north up the belt. So that's kind of the beginning of the project there. And that's A&A Drilling was the contractor's sub that they use for their tap.
Is that a hot tap?
Yes. Yep, so that line is live, and you tap it. Makes things go pretty quick.
Would you explain what a hot tap is to those of us who are not engineers?
So basically, the hot tap is, you're able to keep the host line, I'll say, live. You don't have to shut anything down, as opposed to shutting down the line, closing valves, actually physically cutting that line open and installing a T. This is one way to do it, where basically you put on a sleeve, then they have a tapping device that is able to essentially drill into the pipe in a sealed environment and remove that coupon or chunk of circular chunk of pipe, remove that, and then you see they have a valve that's part of that assembly, the red thing there underneath the worker, and that stays closed until the tap has been completed, and then they bleed it off and you're ready to go. So it's you get the same result. Again, you don't have to shut down the line. They've been doing taps for years, really.
Yeah.
Services, it's a real common, the small 3/4 inch or 1 inch taps on the mains is, I think, probably where really the first taps kind of originated.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. This is just a shot of them laying pipe. We kind of are working in varying depths out there. We've got a lot of utilities to dodge that, I don't know my pointer, but I have a mouse. Oh, there it is. You see my arrow there, this little guy was actually I don't know if that's the gas or something else. There's a lot of little gas services, of course our existing water out there. The existing water main is on the other side of the road, and of course with the county's upgrades to the roadway, we're moving the water line completely over to the east side of the street, or putting new line on the other side of the street. Really probably didn't have to do anything to that line if we didn't have sidewalks and drainage swales and things getting built over it. But be that as it may. So you can see we're bagging the water line, which isn't standard practice for us. It's the plastic wrap you see around the pipe. The reason we're doing that on this job is because of all the gas, steel gas lines around that area. They're basically induced with a positive current or negative current, I forget which.
Negative current.
Thank you.
Cathode.
But to help their lines not corrode over time. But the issue with that is then you have a lot of stray currents in the soils, and we have a pipe in the ground that's a different metal, our ductile iron pipes, that could be cause for corrosion in the future on our line.
So sacrificial metal then.
That's right. So that whole corrosion issue is somewhat mitigated by wrapping the pipe in a polyethylene sleeve.
So that remains on the pipe permanently?
Yep, and you can see the backfill is actually sand in here. We don't like to dump rock directly on a pipe that's wrapped in plastic, and the risk of rock, tearing the plastic.
Has the contractor been doing pretty good for you?
Yeah, they've been
guys?
pretty diligent. You kind of get good and bad, I'll say.
There's things.
And we have great inspection out there. Our inspector's been spending quite a bit of time out there. We have a good crew, and it took them a little bit of time to get their rhythm going, but they seem to be moving along pretty well now. So that's just a shot of a service, a new copper service. The existing one is right there by that spool of copper. And we just basically came in off the new main and strung new copper, and they're putting in new services, new meters on all the homes.
So you do set new meters?
In this case, yes. Yeah, and the big reason for that is because of the location of the swales and the sidewalks. Just wasn't real feasible to keep our meters in the same place in most locations.
And so then our contractor makes the swap for the homeowner, or do you
Yep.
make the homeowner do that?
Nope, we will provide that, yep. Yeah, it's part of the project, they're
Yeah.
required to hire a licensed plumber to go in and make those backside connections. Just a kind of couple other shots of some water lines going in. The guy on the right there is installing a blow-off assembly at a connection point on a lateral on a side street, where we're able to blow off the newly installed line, clean it out, do our pressure testing and disinfection. And then this is kind of a good shot of just, that's Bell Street there, we're crossing, so you can kind of see the extent of the mess, as you noted, Dave. Traffic control has been done very well. You know, this all went through the county. This is county road, so they've got to permit a project like this, of course. And for the most part, they're keeping traffic moving pretty well, even with, you know, occasions like this where we got to open up the roadway. But they'll throw a steel plate down and, you know, keep traffic rolling. So we've got, I think, about 5 of these intersections to do on the job, total 5 or 6. So pretty extensive work.
So is this a restrained line?
Yes. Yeah, we're fully restrained. This one. The next project I wanted to share, I really wasn't a witness on site of it, but Bob can chip in certainly on this one. This was part of the Sunrise JTA. It's known as Site 1 in the ODOT contract. One of the reimbursable locations for us where the contractor Kerr is out there, or is now completed with relocating a section of our concrete cylinder pipe, or CCP, our big 30-inch that runs up the hill to the Mather Reservoir. They did this work on the weekend of May 30th and 31st, so over the period of about 16 hours off. They were able to get in, cut out the line, and install a couple of bends and install new ductile iron pipe, and basically adjust its location to make way for the new roadway that's going to be there. And we cased it, yeah. 300. That's just a kind of a preliminary shot of the CCP pipe in the middle of the screen, and you can kind of see what they're, it's hard to tell the size here, but this is reinforcement and framing for a collar block, a concrete collar block that they installed on top of the pipe on both ends, basically to act as a thrust restraint. You know, we cut a pipe, we want to make sure that because the CCP joints are not restrained, you know, we want to mitigate against any thrust forces in either direction. So installing a collar block is pretty common. CCP is not the easiest to work with. It's basically a concrete, it's a thinner walled steel pipe that's coated in concrete, and it's got a wire wrap interior to it. So it's strong, it actually holds up over time, but when you got to get in and work on it, it's a little tricky. You got to bring in a qualified welder, and then not only welding, but grouting around it when you're all finished. So it's a little more complicated than standard ductile. But there's the collar block, one of the 2. I don't know how many yards of concrete each collar block was, but
They were 8 by 10 by 2 foot wide.
8 by 10, yeah, so
It was big.
160 cubic feet. So that's just a shot of the initial cut-in, and again, I don't know, I got a few of these photos, I don't know the order really specifically of events, but you can kind of get a picture here of how things came down. Of course, the line's been shut down, so all that water is just being bled off from that segment of line. Valves are closed on either side, and I don't know the spacing that we had on the valves, maybe 1,000 feet between them, about that. So, you know, quite a bit of water, but they got their pumps in the pit and pump that out, and it takes a while to drain. But that was the first cut they did. It's kind of a different view of it. And actually, I don't know if that's the other side. Gives you a picture for the work that's entails when you got to cut into a large pipe like that.
Same side.
Same side. Okay.
Did you recover the piece they took out?
I don't know.
I mean, they
Don't really want it.
No, I mean.
What I
just to
did was, we
see what
did grab a
condition
couple
it's in.
samples of the shell,
Oh,
so I
okay.
can confirm the thickness of the wire and the shell thickness with the as-built that we have on our record.
Oh,
Make
right.
sure it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
It was in very good condition. I was surprised for being 1972 pipe. It looked brand new, inside and out.
Yeah.
What you want here?
Amaron, was it Amaron?
Yeah, Emerald by
Amaron.
They did the cut-ins in the kind of late day of the Saturday, and then, of course, overnight, did the real installation work on the rerouted section there. So there's the piece that's removed, and you kind of look in the foreground where these guys are standing, that's the other side
of the ductile.
of the ductile, right?
And that's the
And that's where
CCP.
they're tying in now to the straight run of CCP. So basically, if you imagine coming back another, what, 200, 300 feet?
There's another one just
There's
like
another
this.
one just like this on the other side of the new highway. So, and that's where they're tying in to the CCP.
Mhm.
You can see just the differences in pipe. I mean, this is the concrete pipe here, and then all the ductile. Lots of bolts, lots of labor-intensive type work. But again, just critical components is getting a good connection made. You know, the adapter basically between the concrete and the ductile, and then that's a long welding project to get that on there without any leaks. And I think they did a pretty good job at that. There's a completed product.
How long were you out there?
I think they were out there,
16 hours.
yeah, about 16 hours
Mhm.
and kind of split shifts, you know. We had a couple operations staff coming out, helping turn valves between two separate shifts, and then our main inspector was out there, and Bob split some of that time too. So yeah, about 5:30, 4 or 5:30 on Saturday afternoon, all the way till 7 Sunday morning, somewhere around there. 7, 8. And then lastly, not quite as exciting as that one, but the Monterey project, they haven't actually started laying water line on that yet. The county hasn't. This is one where because it's a new road and a new water line for us, we joined up with the county, and they've done the design, and their contractor will do the construction of the 12-inch water main. It's going to run down the new length of Monterey there. But what we are responsible for was the two, again, the taps on either end of the new Monterey. So at 82nd and then over on Fuller to the west, we've got that tap actually scheduled for next week. But what we did do was mid-May, we went out and our crews, yeah.
You, of course.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
On that project, is the contractor somebody who knows how to work with the pipe, as opposed to a bridge contractor who might not?
This is Elting, isn't it?
This is Elting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely more of a utility.
Okay.
You know, they
Yeah,
do roads. They
You
do
know where I
a
was
lot
going with
Yeah.
that.
Of
Thank
course, you know, any
Jim got
contractor,
205.
yeah, any contractor, you know, you never know until the crew's out there. But I would say that generally, Elton is an experienced contractor in water. So mid-May, it's not the greatest picture, but it's just another shot of the tap. This time it was a 10-inch cast iron line nose tap. You can kind of see the tapping rig there, a little cleaner. And we also use A&A on this one. They're kind of the standard in the area. They do a great job. They're really quick. They get in there, do the work real clean. Always a good end result on their taps. That's just kind of a quick shot of the crew setting up. I didn't get the greatest pictures on this one, but kind of where the guys are standing there, just on the other side of them is the trench that we opened up. So the water main we tapped is right here, kind of along this cone line. And we ran about 50 feet all the way over to the sidewalk here. Really just the initial section of line, and then the contractor, when he builds, he'll connect to that. So that's just the end result of the tap. So the 10-inch main that we tapped into is right there, all buried. Actually, right about there. And then the new line is running west that direction. So, and I think the contractor, I think Elton's water line work is going to start here in the next week or two. So, and they're going to phase that. They'll do that in 3 sections, I believe, because they have a small bridge they're going to put in the new road. So there'll be a small bridge crossing, and then either side of that is how they want to do it. So they've got a good plan. They've got a good schedule that I've seen. So that's really all I had. I wanted to give you an update on what we've been doing. So. Thanks.
A great weather to build projects.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Management report. More.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just remind the board that because we don't give you monthly financial reports like we used to, one of the things that we do try to provide, and it's really under the tab E, E1 and E2, are the revenue and expenditure reports. So for your leisure reading, if you so wish, they are there. So, okay. What I'd like to do is, there's been quite a bit of discussion over the past several weeks, maybe months even, about drought conditions that may or may not exist within the Clackamas Basin. And we've had a lot of questions about that. So I've asked Dr. DiLorenzo to come and do a brief presentation on that, and she'll tell you that we have sent out some information to our publics, and she'll explain that in a little bit more detail. There is a document that we did get just got today from the League of Oregon Cities that just came in. If anybody wants a copy of this, I can make that available for you as well.
I'd like one.
You'd like to have one?
Tonight if I can get it.
Two?
Yeah, I don't know if you could just scan it for me.
We'll see you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Harder.
Well, I've got that meeting tomorrow,
Oh, okay.
the one I want
With the county.
Yeah.
Have to go ahead.
So, looking at river flows, we're definitely running low. Although the governor hasn't declared drought in this area, we are considered to be at a minimum of moderate drought at this point. And that's based upon lack of rainfall, obviously, and then also our record lows for snowpack. The interesting thing about the Clackamas is that it behaves a little bit differently than most systems, in that we have a really large aquifer up in our watershed that soaks up the rainwater. So what this means is, while there is definitely drought and definitely low river flows, it gives us a little bit of a buffer. I said cautiously, it gives us a little bit of a buffer. We don't know exactly what the residence time is up there and how big it is. We think 3.5 years from some reports that we read. But it will hopefully maintain a base flow. But that being said, we are seeing very low levels in the river. If you look at the USGS sensors, there's a link off of our website, you can get to them. Probably the lowest I've seen in the past 15 years. Right now, all signs point to we're at levels that we would normally see in mid-July. So what this means is that given that there is the potential for water shortage identified, and we are seeing low river flows, we are issuing a stage 1 water advisory. And what that is really just letting our customer base know that there are low river flows that they need to be aware of, and encouraging them to do some voluntary conservation efforts. So we're going to be moving forward with that. We have a public service announcement that was sent out to probably half the media base tonight, and I'll send out the other half tomorrow morning. We're also going to post it on our website so you guys can read it. It's fairly soft language. It was agreed upon working with the CRWP members, because we all have different water management conservation plans, except for Lake Oswego. I should add that. We have the exact same curtailment plan that Lake Oswego does, and it's actually pretty strong, very strong one. And so they should be issuing their stage 1 within the next 2 weeks. So they're on the same page as us. And so are the water providers, the other providers in the area. It's just that their curtailment plans don't call for a stage 1 at this point, whereas ours does, and so does Lake Oswego. So obviously, given the way our region is set up, if one of us issues a stage 1, pretty much everyone's gonna get a ding on it. So that's why we've been working together to create a unified message. So with that, obviously as a public service announcement, I've been communicating with Dawn about sending out a mailer to all of our customers. And then we're also getting ourselves set up in the event that the governor does actually declare a statewide drought. We will move into stage 2, which is a water shortage. And then we would start really focusing in on not just residential conservation, but also commercial, notifying some people that there may or may not be some issues with water supply. So I just wanted to let you all know that. And are there any questions? Oh, also, if you want to see our curtailment plan, it is on our website on the conservation page. You can click on it, and that's all in there. So, and it's pretty detailed and well written. So it'll clearly list out the stages, what conditions trigger it. And so we're bound by that water management conservation plan to those stages and how we respond. We can do more, but we cannot do less.
So the numbers he was talking about, I printed them out from the USGS for you guys to see, because we all seem to always refer back to this chart that's up here. So keeping it in that context, and you guys can all have one of these to look at if you want, but what's nice is they've got 14 years worth of records on the chart. You can pick the day and the month, and you can see what the mean flow would be. So for today, the mean flow in June on the 11th should be 3,140 cubic feet per second. And so this morning, for just a little while back up, we were at 992 cubic feet per second. Now it's up to 1160. Just before I came here, I looked at it real quick to see. And if we have to leave 640 CFS in the river, we do. There's not much bump there. And we don't want to have to, I mean, once you hit that spot, I don't know what you do. You could probably tell us how the state deals with that.
Also can be a little bit misleading in that you don't know the deviations. So if you had a really high flow year, it's going to pull that mean up. So to put it in a little bit more reference, last year on this very day, we had an extra 400 cubic feet per second. So we are definitely low, but hearing 3,000 as mean might make it seem way worse than it is. Not saying it's good, but just keep that in mind. So hypothetically, just anecdotally, if we kept on this path, we might see some issues with the river flow, especially in September. I'm guessing we'd probably be at least 100 cubic feet per second below. But in September,
Below the 640?
we'd probably be hitting that 640, probably. But also keep in mind that in September and October, PGE will be able to release water from North Fork, so that will give us a little bit of a buffer, but they cannot release water before then. And so at the Clackamas River Water Providers, it was brought up, we had a long discussion about it. We are all working together to try and coordinate, and hopefully if it does come down to an issue of river flows and water rights, we're hoping that we will all be able to kind of work logically and practically together.
At what point will the feds or the state step in?
There is some rumbling right now coming from Salem that the governor may issue a statewide drought. We don't know exactly when that will happen. It's going to be discussed at the Oregon Water Utilities Council. They have their next meeting on the 25th. And so I'll be there, I'm the vice chair, and so I will probably have more details about it after that.
So one of the things that she's doing that I think is really great is trying to figure out what that base flow is. You know, the state can't tell us, they should be able to tell us, but they've never done the research. Here she is, solo out there trying to figure out what the state's supposed to be doing.
Data.
You know, and we're really fortunate to have you, you know, help us kind of figure out what the facts are. You know, we don't know what the facts are. But you're out there on the river all the time, and you get to feel what the river's doing and know what we can expect. But until we really know what that aquifer up at the head end does, nobody really knows how significant any of this stuff is, you know, because water right doesn't mean anything. You know, it has to do with what's available. So, you know, finding out what that base flow is, I think, for everybody in the basin is pretty important. So.
Yeah, it's a very tricky system because there are a lot of moving components, a lot of different things going on. But so I've been tracking conductivity based upon its relationship to groundwater flow, and just trying to figure out when we hit our largest groundwater input. And so that I've been tracking every day. And in the 14 years of data, the highest conductivity has gotten is in the mid-70s. So if we peak over that this year, it's going to kind of be a clue of what our base flow coming from the aquifer could be. Because the way the aquifer is up there, it's porous. So our rain, our water year is about 97%. It's just our snowpack that's down. The snowpack is what gives us a nice buffer in the summer, but it's not the only thing that we rely on. And so if we could figure out what the base flow is, it might help us gauge of how long we can kind of persist on that or we run out.
And the reason you want to know that number is because if we need to figure out how to have more reservoir capacity, knowing what the base flow is helps you calculate how much time you need to buy with reservoir space and how big a reservoir it is, or whether you can even afford to do it or not. You know, so those are the reasons why you have to know that. You can't do an engineering piece until you know what the system does.
Yeah, so we're working on it, keeping an eye on it, but it's definitely at a state that it hasn't really been in 14 years of the data that we have.
So which water districts have you been meeting with?
I met with Christina Hollenbeck from the CRWP, so she represents obviously, yeah, and then with Kevin McKayla from Lake Oswego. So, and so after meeting with them about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, we've really been on the same page, and so I let them know that we were going to pull the trigger on our stage 1, and then Kevin followed suit maybe a couple hours later. So we're lined up, and all the other water providers know that it's coming out of the pipeline, so there shouldn't be any surprises.
So Sunrise, Oak Lodge, South Fork, all are aware of what we're doing.
Yes.
Do you expect them to follow suit?
I expect them to follow suit only if the governor declares a drought, but
So not on their own initiative?
because their water management conservation plans are tied up in litigation, and they have different curtailment stages. So yeah, I do expect them to kind of hold back, but we're pretty confident that the messaging it's gonna hit region-wide. I mean, when you send a PSA to the newspaper, it's not like it only gets delivered to...
Everybody's gonna read it.
Right, everyone's gonna, which is why we were coordinating. And it was discussed at the meeting with the other general managers, and they all agreed, so.
It just strikes me as one more reason why we need to maybe convene a representative meeting from all of the different local boards in the Clackamas River Basin and see if we can get that joint operating plan implemented. I know that's something we've discussed, and given the circumstances, maybe it should be a priority for the boards. I realize it's probably going to take the boards to discuss this.
Well, the joint operating plan, as you know, does have a curtailment component in it.
Yes.
And basically what it says is that if we get into a curtailment action, that we would all reduce consumption proportionately. And so that's something else to be considered.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to get that to you because if we get to stage 2, which would be our next stage, we'll be doing things like limiting lawn watering, washing cars, and those things where we would actually be affecting our ratepayers directly. And so, because this is going out as a PSA, you might be getting questions, and we wanted you to know the basis and the reason for it. So, on June 8th, we held a new board orientation. Commissioner McNeil was in attendance, and Commissioner-elect Angier, did I say that right? Angier was there as well. That lasted for a day. It was like speed dating. There was a lot of information that we provided, and so we also extended the offer that if there were additional questions or needs, that staff would be available to answer and respond to those. So, Sunrise Water Authority, as you know, had an election as well. They have a couple of new board members. Kevin Bailey, who will fill their Zone 1 position, and Steve Gashler, I think I said that right, is filling their Zone 2 position. And Deanna Boast and Mr. Platt, who is present, were both reelected to their positions as well. CRW board, I think Commissioner Hermanson gave a brief report, but on May 18th, we had a work session, and where we discussed the intertie with the city of Portland and the joint operating plan. We discussed the 18-inch line that runs between CRW and Portland. Advised the board that that's a line that we haven't really used a lot, although we do go out and perform maintenance activity on it. And both our staff and the city of Portland are looking at that line and the pumps associated. The pumps belong to the city, and the line is ours. And so we're looking at those, and it looks like we're going to have to do some maintenance work there. And as you heard from the presentation, that this is something that may take on increased significance as we get more into the season. So it was a timely discussion that we had with them.
I saw in the news tonight, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Portland is running all 27 wells for the next 30 days.
Yeah.
It was kind of an announcement because it's going to change some of the taste of the water and stuff, but it's a maintenance thing.
So water is really on everybody's mind. It's the new gasoline, and probably the old gasoline, we just didn't know it. State of Washington is in the same situation that we're in, and so we'll keep an eye on it. As Commissioner McNeil said, we're fortunate to have Dr. Lou Lorenzo here. I kind of refer to her as the canary in the coal mine. That kind of lets us kind of give us a pre-warning as things occur on the river and in the river. We also met on May 19th with Katie Schwab. As a reminder, she is our bonding agent with Wedbush, and she has sent us kind of a stack of homework, I guess, is the best way to describe it. Things that she would need to know from us. And we have met, I think we had one meeting, and we'll be meeting again to talk about getting that information completed. She did, I think as I shared with some of you, advise that, when she was here last time, she said it was probably not a good time for us to do it. She agrees that now's a good time to do it. And so we're trying to meet with the board's directive by kind of getting on that and trying to get that in process as quickly as we can. So you'll see that. You'll hear more about that as we move forward. We've also had, as a result of our executive session, one of the things that you all asked that the general manager do is meet with each of the commissioners one-on-one. We now have accomplished that. I'm working on a report. I did make contact with Commissioner-elect Angier, She declined because she said, I don't know enough yet, and so, but I think it will be timely in July, probably in a work session, to report out on that, and that would give her an opportunity to at least hear what the rest of you all have to say, and then we can move forward. That is also one of the items that are part of our goals. The next item is something that you all may not have heard about, but it is something that is near and dear to a lot of folks, and that's tree removal. You know, people have a lot of passion about that, and several years ago, staff went off and we brought in an arborist who went through and looked at a lot of our standing trees that we have both out in the Roberts site and throughout the district in terms of our reservoir sites, and did a risk analysis in terms of those trees that were dead that had the potential of doing some damage, those trees that were growing in such a fashion that they may create some kind of security risk, and those trees that needed to be maintained, because one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we're good citizens. And because a lot of our reservoirs sit in people's neighborhoods, if we don't maintain them well, you know, we can get complaints. And so we did that. We had the arborist again come in and update the analysis that they had, and we did have to remove some trees. There's a listing of what we did in your books, and if you have any questions. Oh, and the other thing we did is before we touched the trees, we made contact with nearby property owners so that they knew what we were doing and why we were doing it. And I haven't heard any complaints from anybody as a result of that.
That tree that went through that house in Lake Oswego? That fir tree?
Westland was in.
Yeah, it was, you pushed barely into Westland, yes. Had root rot.
Yeah, I saw
Nobody
that.
had any idea. I mean, it looked like a perfectly good tree, except that the roots were gone.
The unfortunate piece is that they were in escrow at the time it
Yeah.
did.
It was.
Oops. Or fortunate for somebody, I guess, unfortunate for others. The other thing that we've done, because this is year end, is we had some of our departments report on, and so finance and accounting and customer service, that we had received, I think several years ago, an audit comment on our overhead rates, and basically said that they were understated. The accounting staff has gone through and looked at those, done some analysis, and they've made some adjustments. I guess the last time that happened was 92, is that correct? 1992 that we had looked at that. So the overhead rate now has gone from 30.7% to the new rate of 39.81%. So we've made that adjustment, and the contract rate has gone from 4.6% to 9.2%. So those now are, I think, hopefully, and the other thing we did is that we had our auditors look at our methodology to make sure that they were in agreement with what we did, and they gave us a clean bill on that. So now we're current. We also have the emergency managers report and the COOP planning. We're planning to do the presentation on that in our July work session, and give everybody an opportunity to react to that. You might remember that on May 7th, we had a regional water providers emergency equipment drill. I think Commissioner Hendrickson was there. It was well received. We received a lot of comments from our fellow providers thanking us for staging that event. I heard that there was well over 100 people in attendance. That was very well received.
Over 100.
Yeah, it was very well done. I think this was a good example of the work of our staff, that we had our managers, Mr. George Cummings, Dr. Di Lorenzo, and Adam Bornstead, and our employees, Mike Gross, Jed Peters, Gary Ferlin, Tracy Obacker, Damon Bailey, Mike Pearson, Steve Bach, and Stephen Presswood were all involved, yes.
If I could add a comment to that, Mr. Manager.
Yeah.
What was particularly interesting was there were people from agencies as far south as Eugene that were here, and obviously everybody didn't have the same equipment, nor did everything absolutely match up. But to see them work together to solve that problem on several different pieces of equipment was particularly interesting. People turned to help each other and made everything coordinate and work together. So it was particularly, it wasn't a matter, well, that's your problem or any of that kind of stuff. That people really did work together.
Yeah. Thanks for the comment. Appreciate it. The engineering update, I won't drill down too much further than Adam did, but there's been a lot of work, as you can see, on page 8 of 12. On the master planning, we put some dates in there so the board can kind of get an idea of where we are. And we're working on a draft outline for that. We're working with Sunrise Water Authority on some of our engineering methods. The engineering group has really stepped it up a bit and kind of getting through that. And as you heard, we're beginning to share resources and services. City of Milwaukee, they have the agreement for, it's the billing services, I think. That's going to be going before their council. Is it tonight or tomorrow?
The billing services, they've already.
Well, which one? Oh, no, it had to do with the equipment and the maintenance, vehicle maintenance. And that's going to be going before their city commission, so that should be signed. The only thing that's outstanding is their engineering cost analysis, what they're trying to determine as we talk about our infrastructure and whether or not they're going to take responsibility for it, is they had kind of begged off and said, we really need to do an analysis to see if it's worth our while to do that. And they begged off again because of time constraints. And so we basically said the ball is in their court and we wait until we hear from them, although we did offer our assistance in either any kind of hydraulic modeling or anything else they need. I think they decided to do that themselves, and so we'll just have to wait and see what happens. But for the most part, that's the only item that's left with the city of Milwaukee. Engineering department consolidation, we had the operations and our engineering group. They're all residing now down at the plant. That's really designed, the focus there is to improve communications between engineering and the operations group. I think that's moving along fairly well. The Oregon City boundary and hydraulic service area.
A question?
Yes.
Do we have any engineering folks upstairs now?
Yes, we have Mr. George is still up there.
The rest of them are all down.
All down below.
Does that allow us to rent out additional space to the veterinary medical?
Yeah, we notified them that we had additional space available. During the time that all of this was going on, they took possession of or they're in the process of taking possession of the building down below. For those of you, as a reminder, when I negotiated the lease to have them take more space in this building, we entered into a 15-year lease agreement. And one of the things that they requested and we gave them was a right of first refusal to buy this building at any time in the future if we decided that we wanted to sell it. What they have done, maybe if of interest is that they have decided to make this site their premier site. As you know, a couple of years back, the veterinarians who owned this facility over here and that were renting here sold it to a corporation called IDEX. And IDEX is a national organization, much like funeral homes, where they go around and buy up clinics worldwide, and they're managing them to own. So what they've done, because my office used to be back over here in the corner, when we rearranged this building to allow for more space, is they put an MRI and a CAT scan machine in this building. That's what's on the other side of the wall. So once they've done that, they now are talking about putting a radiation facility for cancer treatment out behind their building, and that's supposed to start.
Wait a minute, we're talking about a veterinarian clinic here?
Yes.
Okay. MRIs.
Come on, hang in there, hang in there.
Well, welcome aboard.
Whoa. I thought you just got a new one.
Well, they even have Obamacare for animals. So
Oh, great. Boy, my,
They tell me that that's their #1 profit center, is
Wow.
healthcare. And they are going to be, putting in a radiology unit behind the building over here. And it'll be the only facility of its kind on the West Coast, they told me. So I think what they're doing is staging up this entire complex with the idea that it's going to be a weird location. I had read that Oregon has more dogs and cats per capita than any other state in the United States. I don't know if that's true or not, it's just that I had read that.
I believe horses are also on that list.
Half those animals are in my front yard.
Really?
San Diego
Half
County,
of them are in my front yard.
on horses, San Diego County has the most horses per capita of any county in the United States, including Texas.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, things are happening, and we have made them aware that we have additional space in the building. So we'll wait and see what's going on. You've heard about Carver Bridge, so I won't get into that. The only thing that I would say is the all hands meeting that we had with the county, parametrics, and ourselves, and all the experts and lawyers, was a good meeting. That we kind of landed at a spot where we all ended up on the same page. And as you heard from Mr. Bornstad, the next step will then bring in the contractor, Wildish, and we will continue that discussion with a larger group of people. And then we listed several other activities in terms of land use review, new services coordination, and private development. One of the things that our technical staff is trying to do, and just when we think we've made a lot of inroads, then we get knocked out of the saddle again. But they have spent a lot of time working with the various government agencies, because particularly the county and Oregon City, so that we can kind of get out in front of a lot of this construction stuff that's going on. Because in many instances, we don't learn about stuff until after the fact almost. And as you know, then we're in a situation where we're having to run like heck to get our lines moved. And as you saw from some of the pictures here, that's a pretty formidable task. And so working with them, but I think we just had another one with this last week where we were blindsided, and we were trying to get you. But staff has done a really good job of attending meetings and the like, trying to stay in front. Yes.
To compliment staff, and possibly yourself, I'm not sure where this came from, but there's a rotating project that's going to occur in our neighborhood, either this week, or either next week or the week after. And there was a project to replace plastic lines that served the homes in our neighborhood with copper lines. And it got put on the back shelf back about 4 years ago, roughly. And knowing that they were going to do the paving, our staff were out there getting all of those lines replaced and completing that project in a very timely manner, I might add, just in the last couple of weeks, so that once the road is paved, they don't have to come in there and cut the road open again, which just drives the neighbors crazy when they see things like that. So why don't you coordinate these things? Well, it was coordinated, and commendations to all for doing
No,
that.
and it's really important, because the worst thing that can happen to us is for those services to get buried.
Yeah,
You know, and-
well, it's a whole other problem. Yeah.
So,
But people just go and shake their heads when they find out that a whole new road gets put in, and then along comes a utility company, water or whoever, and they cut a hole in the brand new road. And it just drives them crazy.
No, I think we're very fortunate with our staff to have very professional folks out there doing the work. Speaking of that, the systems operation on tab 11 to 12, you can see a list of projects that they're working on as well. They're pretty extensive. And we provide this information because a lot of times you don't see the work that's going on behind the scenes. It's stuff that they do every day. And then on the last page here, and I'll complete in my report, we have the same kind of report from Water Resources. They're continuing to work with Sunrise on the SCADA transition. That's an evolving project. The mobile emergency water treatment plant, when we had the drill, then that facility also had to then be cleaned up and maintained and returned. Working with Clackamas Community College, that's going extremely well with our interns and stuff. One of the things that we have coming, and I think if she doesn't get buried, in our work session again for July, we put out with the mailers, a customer service survey. And hopefully we'll be able to present to the board the results of that survey. What do you think? You have about 1,000 return-ish?
So far, we've entered 735, and we have a whole box left, so we'll have over 1,000.
So basically, we'll be able to, the trend is looking favorable, you know, in terms of, in the comments that we've been getting. But I think, you know, a lot of times we're out doing things and we don't have any idea what our customers think about what we're doing. And so the survey is really intended to get that feedback. So that's, you guys had asked us to do a lot more outreach, and so that's what we've been doing, is in the spirit of doing that. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, move on to commission business. SCAO is going to have a conference to educate board members soon, and if you're interested, get the staff and get signed up.
And I might add, for the board members and for Commissioner-elect Angier, if you're going to go, if you could let Karen know, because if we can do that in group fashion, I think it, you know, there's some discounts involved and stuff like that. So if you would do that, we'd greatly appreciate it.
Remember to get your expense report in. Now we'll adjourn the meeting and go into executive session.